Morning is going really. We had such a great room. It was fire. We do the music shout out now at 11 a.m. So everybody just who's up on stage or can raise your hands, like just shout out an artist. And man, we had like everything. We had classical, we had jazz, we had rock, we had heavy bluegrass covers of heavy metal music. So it was fantastic. All right, we are going into the countdown. Another new industry paradigm, Electric Daisy is on. Clubhouse, $4 billion. Patreon, $4 billion. It seems like a magic number this week. Gaming concerts, gender balance, Taylor Swift followed through. And what's a day without your daily Spotify updates? It's the weekly recap. We have a lot to talk about, but first, let's turn to my co-host, Eli Window. How are you, Eli? Happy Friday.
I'm doing great, Peter. I'm doing great. Shall we go ahead and get started with some On This Day in History, some birthdays?
Let's do it.
All right, I love it. Let's go ahead and get started and remember American singer and songwriter named Brook Benton, who died age 56 on this day in 1988. He scored over 20 U.S. top 40 singles in the late 1950s and early 1960s. And he scored hits such as It's Just a Matter of Time and Endlessly. We remember record producer Martin Hannett, who died on this day in 1991. He worked with many Manchester acts, including The Smiths, New Order, Joy Division, Happy Mondays, Magazine, as well as U2 and the Psychedelic Furs. On this day in 1997, songwriter Mae Boren Axton died, aged 82, after drowning in a bath at her home in Hendersonville, Tennessee, after an apparent heart attack. Known as the Queen Mother of Nashville, she wrote over 200 songs, including a co-writing credit on the Elvis Presley hit Heartbreak Hotel. Hey, that's a heck of a credit to have. Let's move on. Happy birthday today. We remember birthdays today. Born on this day in 1932, American singer-songwriter Carl Perkins, who had the 1956 U.S. number 2 and U.K. number 10 single Blue Suede Shoes. On this day in 1977, Gerard Way, singer-songwriter with American rock band My Chemical Romance, born on this day in 1977. Born on this day in 1980, Albert Hammond Jr., guitarist from the American rock band The Strokes, born on this day in 1980. Born on this day in 1999, American rapper, singer, and songwriter Lil Nas X. He came to international attention for his 2019 country rap single, Old Town Road. Moving on this day in history, April 2004, a man was arrested for allegedly stalking Avril Lavigne, pop singer. James Speedy was arrested after police searched his home. He was later released on $5,000 bail. He was later charged with stalking the singer, unfortunately. On this day in 2004, Motley Crue singer Vince Neil pleaded no contest to battery charges after accusations that he assaulted a sex worker at the Moonlight Bunny Ranch by grabbing the woman around the throat and throwing her against a wall. Neil was sentenced to a 30-day jail suspension, 60 days of anger management, and was fined $1,000. Moving on this day in 2016, Fleetwood Mac announced that Lindsey Buckingham had been fired from the band. It would be replaced by Crowded House's Neil Finn and Mike Campbell, former lead guitarist of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, on their upcoming tour. Describing Lindsey's departure as bittersweet, Stevie Nicks stated, "Our relationship has always been volatile." And that's it for On This Day in History. Welcome to the Music News Power Hour, where we discuss all the news that you actually care to hear about. I'm going to turn it over to Peter now, who's going to tell us a little bit about our format and get us started with some headlines.
Well, I thank you, Eli. That was fantastic. It's like I always love the little tidbits of history. I mean, and it's also great, about honoring, remembering people that have passed away. But some of those tidbits are really funny. Like yesterday, I mean, since we are doing the weekly wrap up, I don't know who was here yesterday, but it's like for the London Olympics. Somebody reached out to the WHO and was asking, like, on this day, somebody reached out from the London Olympics to ask the WHO to perform if Keith Moon could perform.
And the response was so choice.
It was fantastic. All right, so everybody, hey, how you doing? Happy Friday, everybody. It's great to see you. Thanks for all tuning in. We had a great Good Day show, and now we do the News Power Hour. And this is where we scour the World Wide Web for music news that we find important, and maybe you do too. How this works is we kind of read some articles. We read some articles here from, like, direct from the news, and you are more than welcome to raise your hand and join in the conversation. We want to hear your reactions, your thoughts, and if there is something that we missed that you want to bring to the table, feel free to, like, hey, did you see this in the news? We've had that a lot happening this week, and it's fantastic. It's like, just join in the conversation. It's what it's all about. If you want to check out the show notes for every show we do, we add the links, the headlines, and the links to the articles in a Google Doc, and you can go to the website musicindustrycity.com, and there's a graphic panel there that says Clubhouse Information Center. If you click on that, you'll be able to access the show notes and other information, and tells you all about our schedule. If you like, you also can register for free at musicindustrycity.com. Sign up for free, and you get our weekly email that tells you all about our Clubhouse shows, our live streaming shows, and with Eli, we're going to talk about live streaming the shows in just a moment, but live streaming shows and our VR networking events and talk shows in VR. So I also want to say a shout out. Hey, Mike, I see Mike McCready here. I also see Mike McCready's watching our video feed as well right now. And shout out to the other people I see on Facebook and Twitch and YouTube. So if you have a comment, just type a comment in, and I'll be able to see those if you have a question you want to add to it. So we have the video feed going on, and we're going to be able to, and starting next week, Eli, you're going to be on the video feed too, right? So everybody is going to be able to see Eli.
Hopefully I don't break the camera, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
It's going to be awesome. So cool. We're testing it out. So everybody, this is again, if you want to chime in, just raise your hand as we go through the stories, and you can jump in, and we kind of talk about it just for a minute, and then we can move on to the next article. But then at the back half, it's open. It's a roundtable discussion, and you can talk about anything that happened in the news this week. We covered 40, almost 50 articles, I think, this week.
That's a lot of articles. I'm glad we're getting started because this is the Friday Week in Review. We have a lot to discuss.
Let's do this. All right. And this is from koreatimes.co.kr. And we talked about Hybe. Hybe grabbed spotlight with plan for a new music industry paradigm. So the Hybe Corporation founder said he will open a new paradigm in the music industry in a video message celebrating the successful acquisition of Ithaca Holdings. Quote, the combination of Hybe and Ithaca Holdings is a new challenge that nobody has expected. The two firms have achievements and know-how in the music industry, and based on our expertise, we can create synergy by closely working together, Bang said. Bang said, hopes to accelerate the global advancement of K-pop through Ithaca Holdings, which is the mother company of SB Project that manages global pop stars such as Justin Bieber, Ariana Grande, and J Balvin. So this is what we covered earlier in the week about that purchase. You know, Scooter sold it for $1 billion, and it seems like $1 billion has been the number for through the week. We see like KKR and BMG talking about $1 billion. So this article is in the show notes. It goes into a little bit more. I just want to bring that to attention. It's like, meanwhile, Hybe announced it took 100% of Ithaca Holders shares as of April 2nd, invested 1.05 billion to acquire Ithaca Holders, which is recorded as the biggest acquisition deal by a local entertainment firm to date. So it's the first time for a local music label to acquire an overseas label. So it's a big week for that. And if anybody has any thoughts on these acquisitions, we are going to be talking about an article about these acquisitions. And in live music news, and this came out, it's from Billboard.com. Electric Daisy Carnival Las Vegas is on for May. Quote, book your flights, hotels, and shuttles. All right, so this was announced Thursday by Insomniac Events founder and CEO Pasquale Rotella. The company's flagship festival will take place as scheduled May 21st through the 23rd at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Quote, We are moving forward as planned and will be working closely with local and state officials to make the show as safe as possible, he wrote in a statement published to Twitter and Instagram. Continuing, you can expect the full EDC experience with no details spared, from the festival grounds to the music, stages, art, performers, artists, and fireworks. And you can read the complete statement on his Twitter and Instagram post. It's also included in this article. The safety protocols that will be in place at the festival, which typically draws approximately 125,000 attendees per day, remain unclear, with Rotella noting, quote, more details on safety protocols and the lineup will be shared soon. Projected attendance for the 2021 event is unclear as well. So a protocol plan submitted to the Nevada Department of Business and Industry by Insomniac was rejected, Billboard can confirm, and a new plan for the festival has not yet been submitted. Throughout the pandemic, Nevada officials set the state's COVID-19 protocols and rules for large events, but that authority transitions to local authorities on May 1st. A statewide mask and social distancing mandate will, however, remain in place. By happening in May, EDC Las Vegas becomes the first major festival to occur since the pandemic shut down the live events and touring industry in the spring of 2020. The event is currently listed as sold out, with ticket transfers for the 2022 event being offered to ticket holders who can't travel to Las Vegas next month. Ticket transfer requests will be accepted until April 15th. Who's excited to hear about this, or who has some concerns about this? Seems like a big experiment.
I'm both. I'm excited and I'm concerned. Am I allowed to be both?
You are, yes, you are absolutely. I mean, we keep on saying, like, people say it's like, oh, okay, well, they're going to be the guinea pigs. It's like, well, that's not really a great term to say, but in essence, it's like, we look at, and we talked about in the other room, it's like saying, well, Texas, well, the guinea pigs were Texas. We already had this in the Florida, but the other thing is, is a great point was made, is it's not 125,000 people per day standing shoulder to shoulder sweating.
Right. So yeah, I hear you. I hear everything about this, and I'm a huge live music fan. There's just nothing like being at a concert. I'm so excited for concerts to return safely, but I'm both excited and I have concerns, and I hope that everybody stays safe and healthy and well, because we want to see live music stay on a trajectory of coming back, right?
Absolutely, and it's been a challenge, and there's insurance policy, like all this stuff. Everything's crazy, but hopefully this will be the opening to more to come, and hopefully as long as it's safe.
Yeah, and Elliot, you were going to say something too. I think I cut you off. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it just seems like I'm excited that we're starting to come back as well, because I love live music and I work in the industry, obviously. And, but it seems like if we have one, I'll call it a mistake, one hiccup, that it's going to set us back much farther than we already have been.
That is very true. I mean, you look at how different companies, different states, different countries have been handling things, and we go back to, and we covered in the news where I was talking about the Blues Fest, Byron Bay Blues Fest in Australia. One COVID was one COVID.
Yeah, that was
person.
Even before the event started. Yeah,
exactly, and they shut it
Right.
down. The government asked to force them to shut it down 24 hours before gates were open.
Yeah, and we clearly, all eyes will be on them. So I wish them the best of luck. And something that came up sort of towards the beginning of COVID was, when restrictions started to go into place, was we could do everything possible to screen people going in and require tests and vaccinations and this and that, and do security checks and temperature checks. But once everybody's in on an open field, nothing's going to stop them from all wanting to push up front. That's just something at a festival that the audience is just naturally going to do. And it's they tried to solve it with pods at outdoor field events, but that's not going to work at Electric Daisy, that's for sure.
Yeah, I went to a show last weekend. Maybe it was a week. I don't even know what time it is, but it was fully outdoors. It was in a, kind of on a really empty street attached to a brewery. And I got there just as the second band was about to go on. It was a friend of mine. And at first, people were being really respectful. And like when they were eating, they were like going across the street and distancing. But then as he finished his set and as more people, I guess, had more, I don't know, I guess lower their inhibitions, it was just everyone was kind of eating and drinking willy-nilly. And that's when my friends and I were like, all right, we're leaving, because it just started feeling not as safe. And I'm afraid that at a festival situation, it might escalate to that a lot faster, perhaps.
Well, I want to bring up too, although I'm sure we'll cover it later after we cover some more headlines, but Barcelona ran kind of an experimental concert not too long ago where there were 5,000 attendees who were COVID tested as they came through the gates. And we're still waiting on the numbers to come back from that. And I think I can speak for all of us. We're all hoping for good research and good numbers and for good safety so that live music can keep coming back. Please come back, live music. We love you.
100%.
Yeah, and the COVID, the concert, for the 5,000 attendees in Barcelona, it was still 12 days ago, so we still need that 2 more days. So hopefully, they might release something next weekend. Any updates? I mean, I just did a quick Google search and it didn't say anything about these updates as well. So. All right, we can come back to this. I do want to just get through a couple other things here, and I see welcome Jesse. We do the news here, and so we're covering some articles. We just read right from the headlines, and if there is something you want to chime in about, once we finish the article, we'll open up the table for a little moment, or we'll just go on to the next article and anything. Then we open it up for the back half hour of this for open discussion. So if there's something you want to talk about that's in the news or that's happened during the week, it's the week in review, and we just go some headlines. But we cannot go through a day without having our daily dose of Spotify, right, Eli?
It's the Spotify spot.
It's the Spotify spot. It's that we got to come up with something. Yeah, there we go. It's like we need a sound, like a little sound, a stinger for that. The Spotify spot.
We need some like 1930s radio singers to,
Oh, that is what I'm thinking. I like that. Let's make it happen. All right. This is from TheVerge.com. Titled, Hey Spotify is another hands-free way to control your music rolling out now. All right, it's not as convenient as native voice assistants, but Spotify hardware is on the way. This goes on. It's a quick article here that talks about if you want to pull up your favorite Spotify track or playlist without pressing buttons, there is no shortage of voice assistants to help you get those jams, including Alexa, Siri, Google Assistant, even going on and on. But now Spotify has its own hands-free wake word, which is Hey Spotify. It appears to be rolling out on Android and iOS and is tested by 9to5Mac and some others and The Verge. What they say is, frankly, it's a little less handy some of the native voice assistants built into your phone because you need to leave the app open for it to work. It's not something you'll launch with your phone asleep or with Spotify simply running in the background. But if you have the app open, you can just say, Hey Spotify, and ask it to play a song. Pull up a playlist, launch a radio station, and skip, play, pause. We also found the quote, play something I like command will pull up a random one of our daily mix playlists. All right, so this phone version's feature's been in the works for at least a year. It was discovered last March, but why now, they're saying? Why bother when other voice assistants can do this without launching an app? Imagine that it's because Spotify is tracking towards its own hardware, where its voice assistant will always on and always ready. Specifically, Spotify appears to be tracking toward the launch of its car thing, a dedicated Spotify smart assistant for your vehicle that was reported to include a Hey Spotify voice command way back in January 2019. All right, Spotify. Does anybody use like their Apple device and say like, hey, skip, play, pause, like, the Siri, Alexa, do you use that and have good experiences with it? And I know, Eli, I think you want to know, so add to something to this.
I was just going to ask the same question. Does anybody use voice commands when they're playing music on their devices now?
Yeah, it works pretty fine. Yeah, go for it, yeah.
Yeah, at home we have a bunch of Google speakers, and they're wired for different rooms, and we'll say, hey, Google, play this, play that, skip. Things, we use it quite a bit.
Yep, same here. It's pretty functional. Spotify, the Apple stuff.
We
does
cover
have some issues in the car, though. I guess that's a car thing now, but Subaru Outback, Spotify commands, not good.
Right. Now, we talked about, interesting, like it was a couple weeks ago we talked about this. We covered it. It was saying that the statistics for what platform is primarily used based on what interface you have. And of course, it would be like, if somebody had an Alexa, it was still Spotify was the leader. But if you had an Alexa, you were I think it was like it went from like 23 to like 39% were Amazon Music. So it's interesting. It's like how each platform is different. So maybe with Spotify just being able to say, hey, Spotify, and just building it into something else might just really just kind of bypass the access to Amazon, Apple, and anything else.
I feel like that's kind of the purpose of all of this, is to kind of get proprietary metrics on what listeners are listening to. And I think each platform has their interest in different areas. They're asking different questions. So it makes sense that each platform is going with voice commands and listening to what you want and paying attention, creating these playlists and making them voice accessible. It makes sense. They want those metrics.
They were like, it was saying like, somebody just said in one of the on the live stream feed, they're like, just tell Spotify to play the artists more money. We don't need this.
Oh,
thank you for that over in the live stream.
But pay Spotify, pay artists more money.
Exactly. It's like, all right, that's what's happening. It's like, yeah, I mean, we can have that conversation on a daily basis. But we are, speaking of money, we are going to the magic number of $4 billion, and we're going to talk about Clubhouse. And this is in digital music news. Title is Twitter discussed a $4 billion buyout of Clubhouse. Now Clubhouse is seeking funding. So a new report says that Twitter discussed a potential $4 billion buyout of Clubhouse. Both companies discussed the potential valuation, but those discussions are no longer ongoing. Close sources for the Bloomberg report suggest that the talks happened in recent months. It's also unclear why these talks fell through. Either way, Clubhouse is now seeking a similar $4 billion valuation in new funding. A spokesperson for Twitter declined to comment on the speculation when asked. Clubhouse has not responded for requests for comments about the report either. The report follows the news that Clubhouse is seeking a new round of funding, sensibly with the hopes of beating that $4 billion exit price. All right, so this is in digital music news. It goes on, it talks about some other things, and it talks about the competitors, which we've covered numerous times. But again, this is in the show notes, which is on musicindustrycity.com. Click that little graphic that says Clubhouse Info Center, and you can find the show notes and the links to all these articles. But we're going to continue with this $4 billion theme, because in music business worldwide, Patreon is now valued at $4 billion after raising $155 million in the latest funding round. So the San Francisco-based crowdfunding membership platform Patreon has just raised $155 million in Series F financing. That's right, Series F. We don't hear that letter too often when we're talking about Series, but it's increased in its valuation to $4 billion. Patreon, which artists use to offer exclusive content, previously raised $90 million in September 2020, valuing the company at $1.2 billion. According to Patreon, its 200,000 creators across podcasts, videos, musical, visual art, writing, and more are earning over $100 million per month from 7 million patrons. Patreon's creators have earned more than $2 billion since the company's inception in 2013. Goes on to talk about like the investing partners and everything. They plan to use the additional funds to accelerate its progress on initiatives including enhanced creator and fan experiences on both desktop and mobile, international expansion, and new content consumption tools. It also allows them to explore potential acquisitions to further expand its talent and product capabilities. So yeah, it keeps on going on, and Jack Conte says we're starting with content and community capabilities, but over the next decade, we're setting out to build the creator infrastructure that supports a second renaissance. So you can read the rest on here, and I found two quick things. I find that really interesting that he talks about the next decade. So this is, Patreon's looking for that long haul, playing the long game. I really like that, and that's part of a great strategy for some companies. Others, when we're talking about Clubhouse, we don't know what that play is, and if they're looking at $4 billion valuation. And saying that, hey, people are saying like, hey, something, they turned down $4 billion. And Mike, I know you brought, you brought the awareness to me about that article was saying that, Twitter, they might have turned down Twitter for $4 billion. But if we go back a decade, we can look back when Facebook offered Evan Spiegel $3 billion for Snapchat. And Snapchat was 2 years old at the time. And so we're talking, this is over a decade later. That $1 billion really isn't that big of a deal anymore. 3 to 4 billion. So for Spiegel to turn down $3 billion by Facebook, they were saying something there. And now Clubhouse is saying $4 billion. Nah, we're going for something else here. So anybody had thoughts on this one?
I'm a little confused on the 7 million subscribers for a 1 million turnaround. That's about 14 cents per subscriber to artist payout.
All right, let's see what this, according to Patreon, it's 200,000 creators across podcasts, videos, music are earning over 100 million per month from 7 million patrons.
I'm sorry, I misheard that.
Okay. All right. So we are going to go on to and we talked about this, and then we're going to start opening up to the forum. And of course, anybody can raise their hand, join the stage, or if we ping you up, just welcome to join us. If we miss pinging you up, that just means that we just didn't see you because we're reading. And so I want to talk about gender balance at festivals. Has it been forgotten during the pandemic? And this comes from the BBC. And that's bbc.com. And this was published last week, but we're bringing this back because there was a conversation around this. It's called Gender Balance at Festivals Has Been Forgotten in the Pandemic. And they say when some UK festivals recently revealed their lineups, there were familiar cries of, where are all the women? One of those in the spotlight was Kendall Calling in Cumbria, whose first wave of acts was predominantly male. The festival booker admits the criticism was completely valid. Quote, I feel the same way, she says. Quote, I have this conversation every year. It's not changing quickly enough. Before the pandemic, the issue of achieving gender balanced festivals is high in the industry's agenda through various schemes such as Key Change, with aims for 50-50 split across all lineups. Last year, a new free-to-use database of female artists was published, providing details of more than 4,500 musicians in all genres of music. And Glastonbury's Emily Evis has previously said that her festival needs to achieve a gender-balanced lineup as soon as it can. This goes on. Goes on some stats like Emmys increased the representation of female and gender minority acts from approximately 14% in 2016 to 31% in 2019. She's trying hard to achieve an even split and, quote, skews more female acts on the lower stages when she can. So, it's a great article here talking about it. It's a lot of back and forth, and it gets in deep. But I want to get your thoughts on this. We hear a lot, gender balance, gender equality, and have anybody, some people have actually said it's a challenge to get people to women on stage, and that was one of the articles that we discussed where one of the talent buyers was saying it's like we try, but it's hard. And they said in the article, and I think it was from Kendall, saying that we try, but there's just not enough good female artists to make for the big stage for us. Any thoughts on that?
I'm going to bring this up because I actually mentioned it when we covered the article that you're referencing initially. I know that there's kind of a disparity and discouragement about trying to get female artists to headline at festivals, but I'm curious to know how much of that is due to the fact that like women might not be as willing to sleep 9 people in a 2-bedded hotel room and shower with a water bottle, and there might be things about a festival contract that might be less appealing to women, but I don't know. So that was something that I brought up to ask the room about previously, that I'd like to ask again. What do you think causes this?
If I can chime in as a promoter.
Please. Hi, Jim. It's good to see you.
Yeah, and it's not going to be a popular popular perspective, but They just don't drink as much beer, and you just don't not as much revenue comes in for an all female or with female artists. And it's ironic. I mean, my favorite artists in the world are female, and we've had many at Great South Bay, but I know from speaking to a lot of promoters and just the way they think. I mean, you know, country shows drink, metal shows drink, jam band shows drink, but there aren't a lot of females in the jam band world or in the metal world or in the there are a lot in the country world. It's just a perspective. It's not something that I base my, you know, who I hire on, but it is a perspective.
That's really interesting, Jim. Thanks for chiming in on that.
Okay.
Hey, Eli, this is Jamie.
Hey, Jamie.
The other half of that to me is the fact that my wife is a CPA, so she deals with numbers all the time, and I'm kind of in that same world. I'd love to look at just purely mathematical, look at number of artists at certain levels and divvy it out male to female, see what the ratio is, and then see where that is and see where it compares to how a stage is laying out. You know, if we have, you know, if metal is dominated by 90% male acts, well, even trying to get one female act onto a stage is a huge step because you're pulling out a 5%, you know, or 10%. So that right there is the root of the hard part. The other one is I will second that motion of the beer. You know, God love it. I love Annie DeFranco, but her crowd, we can pack a room at the House of Blues and they'll sell 10,000 at the bar. You put Clutch in that room and it's a $60K bar tab for the night for a 1,200 person show.
Well, and I want to be clear that, you know, I love the promoter and the bottom line perspective. And I want to be clear that all of this is from a place of love in the industry and knowing that if we can't put on events and be profitable with them, we can't put up events again in the future and continue to host these events. And so I just want to kind of clarify, we're not trying to, as we talk about promotions and bottom lines, I just want to clarify to our listeners that we're not trying to be cold about these festivals. We're just saying simply that, man, if we aren't profitable with our festival, we won't have the money to put a festival on next year.
So that goes back to, I think we mentioned last night, like Lilith Fair, you know, why did that end? Was it just a part of an error? Was it a financial issue? Or was it like too ahead of its time? Was it setting a standard?
I was a teenager in the era of Lilith Fair, and while I loved artists like Tori Amos and Sarah McLachlan and Fiona Apple and all these other artists and Indigo Girls and all these other artists that were included on it, I hope I'm not speaking out of turn. And being a woman, I think I'm qualified to be able to say I just found it odd to be going to a festival specifically because they were all women. Like the theme was female. That feels. I mean, for the men in the room to put yourself in that same perspective, if equality is the goal, then it just seemed very odd. I mean, would you go to a festival that the whole point of the festival was not either the genre of music or the town that everyone's from or or some other reason, but just that you were all of the same gender? It seemed like a good idea that, from the out to sort of raise awareness and get more women, headlining positions and give them the opportunity to be exposed to many more people. But it just seemed odd for that to be the only factor. And I think that may be why it didn't catch on.
Yeah, I remember I was a teenager in that era. I preferred Lollapalooza. That was my first real concert. That to me seemed more interesting, even though I did like some of the bands on the Lilith Fair lineup, but it just wasn't personally speaking to me.
I wanted to come up here and give you guys that perspective from a performer's view. But I don't understand why they're mentioning these things as festival, not owners, but whomever is putting the festival out there, if they're not really meaning what they're saying. If it's not profitable, it's not profitable. That's one thing. But then why bring it up if it's not going to happen? I think that we should be not judged by gender, but how good the music is. And if the music is good, it's going to bring people in, like, regardless. So don't come and tell us that, they're trying to do more about equality and then say, well, it's not profitable. Then don't mention it at all. I don't know. That's just a perspective.
Hi, this is John Pierre speaking. So I came into the room about 5 to 10 minutes ago, but it seems as though the conversation has begun to center around whether female artists are profitable or not. And, I have a company, Peer Entertainment. We act as talent buyers, and that's never a consideration, to be very clear. We never make any consideration based upon gender, because I don't find that gender has anything to do with the performance of an artist. A female artist can perform better than a male artist and vice versa. What I find are factors that do play in is the engagement that artist has, and potentially oftentimes the genre. And so you can make determinations about where to book someone in terms of the night of the week. You can make considerations about how to fill out the bill in terms of someone being able to round out in areas that person might not be as strong. But I never consider gender as part. If I do consider gender, I consider gender to the extent that I want to make sure that the bill is rounded out well and that the lineup has a balance. But this idea that I wouldn't want to do an all-woman show, and I produce an all-women series during Women's History Month in March called Rose's Concert Series in Philadelphia. And, I've specifically seen things like that do very well when they're marketed correctly, when they're promoted correctly, when you have the right type of lineup. And Lilith Fair was one of the biggest festivals that there was back in the late 90s, one of the highest grossing. So I'm concerned about that being a topic. And if someone wants to enlighten me as to how that conversation came up, great. But I just wanted to throw my perspective in there that for me, it's absolutely not a factor.
I'll say a few more words about that, Jean Pierre. I've booked everybody from Ani to Hart to, and Hart does very well, not only at the bar, but ticket sales. But just like I would, if I liked two bands exactly the same and they were both jam bands, I would probably go with the one that's probably going to bring in more people and be better at the bar, only because my profit margin is so small. And I think everybody's situation is different. I run a festival. So, and like I said, I booked Odetta and thinking nobody was going to know who she was. And I was honored to bring her on, and she died. As a matter of fact, I was the last gig before she passed away. And I was proud to see over 1,000 people in our tent and giving her standing ovation. So, those moments are just so great. I booked Laura Nero right before she passed away. And she would have sold every ticket. She almost did sell every ticket, but the bar I wasn't concerned about. I just wanted to lay Laura Nero on everybody. So the heart is there, and the sonically, we want to create this amazing festival. And I don't see a festival, my festival anyway, without great female performers. But I do understand if there's a choice between one or the other, and you're really worried about being around in the next year, why you might go in a certain direction. And that has to do with, two male rockers as well. It's just the fact that the person's a female is just a different story. It's about a person who drinks wine as compared to beer, jazz clubs compared to rock clubs. So it's just, I think it's just a different situation everywhere you go. Thank you.
So, Jim, this is Jean-Pierre speaking again. I fully understand, those decisions, of course. We all make those decisions in terms of genre, right? And so a gospel music act isn't going to sell a whole lot of alcohol, right? But it doesn't mean that a gospel music show cannot be incredibly profitable. That's when you make your decisions in terms of renting out to the promoter at a particular price, right? And things of that nature. But for me, to make those conversations center around what gender performs better, I think is not based in fact and data, maybe anecdotal data, but that's not real data. So for me, I think that it's a slippery slope to characterize how women artists perform at a bar versus male. Let it be based upon that individual person, not anything to do with their gender, because in one genre, it's going to be male dominated. Rock is male dominated. So there's not as many data points from women artists because there aren't as many of them in that genre. But I think as someone who works in all genres, I can tell you right now that there are plenty of women hip hop artists who will sell out a bar in 2 seconds. You know what I'm saying? So I just want to make sure that's very clear.
Good point. Good point. Yeah, no, John Pierre, I love what you're saying. And it does. The genre absolutely does make a difference. I just want to quickly repeat the headline, the topic that we're discussing here, because we have some new folks. Hi, Chris. It's great to see you, Orly. Thanks for your comments. And Melody, thanks for joining us on the stage also. I wanted to bring this back up again. We are discussing a topic, the gender balance at festivals. The article that we're discussing asks, has the gender balance been forgotten in festival lineups? Have festivals turned into a boys' club? And there are conscious efforts being made by some promoters deliberately to include female musicians on the bill. And we're having a little bit of a roundtable discussion about this headline. I just wanted to recap quickly for everybody in the room. Welcome to the Music News Power Hour.
And if you want to actually find the link to the article, you can go to musicindustrycity.com, click on the graphic that says Clubhouse Information Center, and you'll be able to get to the show notes. And that document has all the articles and the links and headlines of what we covered throughout the week, and this is also in there.
I love what you guys are saying. Thanks, Peter and Eli, for bringing this topic up. I think it's really relevant. I was actually in a Women in Music Zoom the other day about this same topic and about how, what can we do? How can we support each other? And how can we find male allies to support us as women in music? So this topic is just kind of following that, which was just 2 days ago. And John Pierre, I love what you said. And I also wanted to add, it doesn't really depend on the artist. It really depends on the artist's fan base, right? Like, who's their demographic and what is their demographic going to bring to the table versus what genre are they in or whatnot. I mean, as a festival buyer, Jim, do you kind of consider their demographics before you consider their music?
I consider, you consider everything. Most of the time, I just book what I think sonically works best for the festival and that our crowd and our followers and our fans really like. So in our case, we have a slightly different approach to it. It's a 4-day festival. On Thursday, we skew a lot younger. On Friday is more of a reggae rock thing. We've had Sublime, bands like that, Revolution. Saturday is more of a jam band thing. And Sunday, we have bands like Tedeschi Trucks Band. So each day is a little bit different markets. Some markets cross over. And and it's never a thought of, again, I brought that up because I know people will think like that, but it's not something that, I have offers in for Heart every year. I have offers in for a lot of different female performers every year. So because they would all fit at my festival. It's really what fits on that day is is how I approach everything. Again, we've had Odetta at our festival. We can go in any different direction and I don't think gender first.
Is it at all possible that in some cases the artists or the management or the label, for example, are for some of these female artists are thinking it maybe isn't a good fit for them, that maybe it isn't all on the side of the promoters and the festival creators to do this, but in fact that we're seeing less women on some of these bills because they just don't think it's a good fit for them?
I'm not sure. I would have to get that from an agent or a manager, I guess.
I think there's some fundamentals here that are being overlooked. One is availability. One is routing. One is, are they brought to the attention of the festivals or the buyers by the agents themselves? I think equating bar sales to a festival is a misnomer and a non-starter. I think festivals, period, at the end of the day, are going to look at draw. They'll look at any artist brought to them if there's a draw. You know what I mean? So I think if you're going to have this conversation, you got to get down to the nuts and bolts of booking, which isn't always, it's not like you have the choice always of any artist. It's who's available, who's in that area, who's ready to go, who's been brought to your attention. There's so many facets involved in this.
Chris, thank you for
Excellent point. Excellent points, Chris.
Thank you. And if I could add to it also, because they're talking about, this goes back to the article about the festivals and booking. And one of the quotes in the article is, and I don't remember the exact quote, but it was saying like there was, and sometimes they just can't find enough talent to make it onto the big stage. But here's another thing, and Chris, maybe also like radius clauses. So if Evanescence, you know, is headlining one festival, they're out. They're done for UK, or they're done for 400, 500 miles or whatever it is. And so a lot of these bands that maybe if they get stuck into a radius clause, that is lowering the pool for everybody. Is that having an effect as well, Chris?
I mean, radius clauses are rarely 500 miles, but radius clauses are a thing. But it's not so much the radio clause. Again, all stars have to align for every show. It's what is the artist routing? Where are they before and after? What's the money? And then even past that, the promoter and the buyers are going to be like, okay, well, that's great. You're part of our routing, or you can fit this in. What's their average draw? Not only is what's their draw, is the draw of the demographic of this event. You know what I mean? Is it like, you know, for like, now we've seen some things like it was Blink 182 and Lil Wayne, right? That people went, wow, this is kind of, will this work? You know, mixing up the genres, trying to do it. So you're starting to see that come into play. But again, back to the stars aligning, that they may be available. Okay. The money may work. Okay. But the draw would only be for them, and those ticket buyers aren't going to be interested in everybody else. So they're probably, you know what I mean? It's probably not a sell through, if you will, for them. So all these things have to align. And then you just have to look at how deep is the pool of artists to choose from for those stars to align. So again, I think a lot of fundamentals are just being overlooked in this conversation of what it takes. And sometimes it's not by doing, it's not sometimes malicious. It's literally that, look, the stars don't align, or the demographic isn't right, or this isn't, you know what I mean? There's a lot of facets to this. Do I agree that the industry needs to be better? The industry needs to be fucking better across the board in every subject, and not just diversity, inclusion, and everything. Those are insanely important, and I agree wholeheartedly with it. But there's a lot of things that need to change in this industry and be looked at. But as far as this conversation goes, I think the fingers being pointed at some people, again, without the fundamentals being included before those fingers are pointed.
But Chris, I think what it goes back to is the actual headline of, you know, them coming out and saying we need to do a better job at booking women, and then not really looking at all the fundamentals, like you are saying, of what it takes to book. Either that, or they need to make a much better job at actually looking at how much female talent really exists and book accordingly.
Okay, well, that's not
it wasn't grilling the promoters at all. Like,
that's not the buyers. That's not the buyers. You know who that comes down to? That comes down to the female artist agent. Is the female artist agent pushing that artist and getting it to all these buyers and putting it in their face and saying, here they are, this is their draw, this is their demographic, this is their average ticket price, here's the stage plot, this is the normal cost of their production, they're going to bring you the draw that you need, they'll fit in this festival. That's who it's on.
I'm just saying, if they're not ready to talk about it, then don't bring the headlines up.
I think everybody's, look, anybody's willing to talk about making money. If an artist is going to make an event money, they're going to go for it. But again, the artist agent, that's their job. It's why they take a percentage, is to bring these jobs to their artists and to get it out there to the buyers and to get it out there to the festivals. It's the agent's job to get it to them. And if the numbers add up and it's going to make money, people aren't going to say no to making money at their event.
David, you had something to say. I saw you unmute your mic.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, just as Chris is saying, I think Chris is nailing it. When it comes to
Did we lose you, David?
No, I'm here. I just stopped
I'm
speaking
sorry.
because I heard somebody else jump in.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah, that's all right. So my name is David. I bring the perspective of an artist who's married to a doctor and who owns a healthcare business, and also as someone who's worked in education a lot. And I wonder, as I listen to these conversations, if we have a pipeline problem. And what I mean by that is talking about some people have mentioned the availability of artists, female artists who could be on these festivals. And I want to think, well, okay, if you go to a small club, what percentage? What's the breakdown of men and women on the stage? If you go to a high school and see the bands that are playing at the local battle of the bands, what percentage of those are male and female? And as someone who has taught lots of young kids music over the years, I can tell you that the women, I mean, when I was in high school, there just weren't a lot of women visible playing music. And
David, I love what you're saying, man. And I just have to break in and let you know that I'm one of those girls who was in the bands in high school.
Yeah.
I played in not just the marching bands and the symphonic bands for school, but also in the jazz band and in rock bands after school. And I did not have a lot of female company. I'm also a music educator. So I hear everything you're saying. I had to break in and let you know you're really, really resonating with me. You and I should connect, and we should have a conversation outside of this room.
Awesome. I have loved
yeah, David, I do
yeah.
want to just get final point. We have 8 minutes left in the room, and I know there's a few other people still have a conversation. So I just want to kind of have you summarize the point that you're getting to, so we can open it back up to everybody else. Thank you.
I can
awesome.
do that. You guys may have been familiar with some of these girls rock kind of camps that you see female artists sometimes running. Artists like Mira, for example, and I've seen a lot of them in the Pacific Northwest, but they've kind of gone to other places as well. I think if you build the pipeline for female artists in elementary school, in junior high, and high school, you'll see effects of those flowing all the way up to the top over time, and that's my point.
Absolutely. And I want to say, too, that it's a cycle. And as those little girls see more ladies on stage to look up to, more of them will get enthused about playing. So it all just feeds the machine again and again and again. But I don't want to take up too much time.
I hate to say it, but since 80% plus of all schools around the country have removed their music and visual arts programs, I don't see you forcing that money back into the education system. While I believe it's a fucked up thing, while I believe that spending millions of dollars on a high school football stadium in the South just shows how far they have their heads up their ass down there about education, I don't see, again, being able to get those budgets back. So we're going to have to find other alternatives, because you're not going to get tax money back into music programs in schools.
It's always the arts that gets cut first. Yeah, it's always the arts that get the shit end of the stick when it comes to budgets. And Chris, I just want to go, Chris. Yeah, I just shouted out 500 miles. I don't know, it rolled off my tongue. Yeah, 500-mile radius is quite a lot.
Yeah, I know. I get it. You know what I mean? And look, up here in the Northwest, he brought up the Northwest, bands like L7, and there's a bunch of stuff out of Seattle, and there always has been. And I get it. But again, I'm going to put this, and again, I'm not saying there isn't an equality issue. There fucking 100% is. It 100% has to be addressed. However, I'm still going to put a lot of this on the artist agent, because it's their job to get their artists into these positions. It's their job to get them on the radar of everybody. It's their job to have all the information to show that these artists will be profitable to an event. And if they're profitable to the event, they'll get booked for the fucking event.
Love it. All right. We have about just 5 minutes left, because this is the News Power Hour. And Eli, do you want to just reset it for the closing? And we're going to just get final thoughts from everybody.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody, for contributing. This has been an amazing conversation today here in the Music News Power Hour. We are here every weekday, Monday through Friday, starting at 12 Eastern for 1 hour, as the name of the room implies. If you're in the room and you have something to contribute to the conversation or you'd like to add something, please do raise your hand, even if we haven't invited you to speak yet. It's not that we don't love you so much, we do. It's not that we don't want to hear from you, it's just that maybe we're reading and didn't see you. So we like to say we bring a whole new meaning to the phrase hands up here in the Music News Power Hour. Please raise your hand if you have something to contribute anytime. And thank you so much to everybody. This has been an incredible conversation today, Peter.
Yeah, it's an important topic, and it's something that we mentioned in the past, and a few things that you mentioned to me, and it's like, and I've heard a few other comments that I thought it was great, and thank you everybody for amazing contributions. This has been an awesome week. I've been so busy, like outside of Clubhouse. It's like, oh my god, like I come back in here and I'm like, oh, so looking forward to it. So thanks everybody. Let's run the room for just some final thoughts. It could be on this topic. It could be on anything else that we covered about everything else. On Electric Daisy is a go, and anything, or like Twitter, Clubhouse, anything you want to just shout out about. We're going to run the room to close it out. Final thoughts, Angela.
Yeah, I've been really enjoying this room this week. It's been keeping me sane while I'm isolating and looking after my husband and being stuck indoors. So I'm looking forward to getting out next week. And I just want to give an extra sort of hands up, big shout out to Chris Musgrave, because I have learned so much from you. Every time you're in a room and someone, brings up touring and brings up, live events, I just look for your face and hope that they give you the room to impart the information, because, you're a Clubhouse superstar for me. And I just want to give you the credit you deserve.
There you go. There's the big audience cheer. Something we've been missing.
And Angela, our UK correspondent, we hope that even when you get to go outside next week, you'll still join us here on the Music News Power Hour.
100%. My Wi-Fi is great in the garden.
Right on. Fantastic. Elliot.
Just going to say I'm keeping my eye on Electric Daisy. I hope it all goes well. And if it does, it'll get us all back to working faster than we hope. Thank you.
Right on. Daniel.
Sorry, I just basically all the stuff listening. So
right on.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
It's nice to have you. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, thanks for being here. Jim, final thoughts. And I know you had to make a tough decision it's been, a little while, but I know you had to make a tough decision. Can you just tell us really, Jeff, want to add something about that, because you had to, reschedule your festival to next year?
Yeah. And by the way, Peter, thank you. I just noticed that you had DM'd me, and I was reading it while we were in this room. Thank you for reaching out. I waited a while, and I was hoping, and just like most of the other promoters in the world, in the U.S., and I just felt that it's too dangerous. It's just too dangerous. And overall, I feel that we're moving too fast. And I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but I think we're moving too fast. I mean, we're not being bombed. We're going through something that, and I'm not trying to understate the financial problems people are having, and schools and everything else that goes along with it. But I just feel like, I felt like this in 2020. If we don't stop, we're going to lose 2021. In my view, we've already lost half of 2021, and if we don't stop now, we may lose part of 2022. And I hope I'm wrong, and I hope everybody else is right. That completely disagrees with me. I do, because I make my living this way, as most everybody else in this room does. But I think a lot of it has to do with greed and impatience, and that's just what I feel. So yeah, we moved it to 2022 July. One of my big headliners had also moved their tour to 2022, which a lot of people are going to find themselves in that situation. They travel with 16 people on the road and a couple of tractor trailers, and they just decided not to make it work. And I'm sure there's a bunch of others that are out there. So we were going to move it to September, October. And then I just said, why, try to fit this festival that we have with 4 stages and 65 bands and, to a place, to an uncertain environment that we don't know what's going to be. And there's so many moving parts
Jim,
Yeah.
can I just break in quickly and say that I love everything that you're saying, and every time I'm in a room with you, I love your passion, and I'm really looking forward to attending your festival. And
Oh, thank you.
thank you for everything you're doing.
Yeah.
Melody, did you have any final thoughts for us as we wrap the Music News Power Hour today?
Yeah, Peter and Eli, thank you so much for having this power hour. I'm so glad I found it earlier this week. I'm isolating too. My boyfriend has COVID, so I resonate with you too, Angela and Jim. I make my money doing this, and I agree with that. I don't want to lose 2022. I'm seeing dates fall off the calendar later this year as well, and it sucks. So hopefully we can get back to normalcy soon. And I'm a Long Island girl. I'd love to do a small stage on your festival one day. I've been pining for that for years. So it's really nice to meet you here.
We'll reach out. Please reach.
Clubhouse connections.
Please reach out. Please reach out.
Clubhouse connections. I love it. Thanks, Melody. Orly, final thoughts for us as we wrap our Music News Power Hour today.
I just wanted to say, Chris, that I do agree with you. I'm looking forward to the day that everybody does their job and people just look at people because they're amazing musicians and not because of gender.
Word. Chris, final thoughts. I love everything you're saying today. Thanks for being part of our discussion.
Yeah, so I'll say, Jim, first off, I applaud you. However, I'll look at it this way. Listen, the first acts coming back are going to be the van bands. It's going to be the couple, the guy, the girl, the whatever, the soloists in the bar, with their acoustic, getting drinks across the bar. So while there's people whose mortgages are on the line, their children need to be fed, car might be being repossessed. There's a lot of people going through a lot right now, including the mental anguish of all this. So what I would recommend is, instead of us shaming those that are trying to go out and do things, we really, as a communal effort within this industry, need to reach out to those acts, because safety and security costs money. So anything we can do to help them do whatever it is they're going to do safely and as safe as possible and exceed guidelines will help us to not lose 22. But those of us that just point and judge those going out and doing shows right now and saying, well, we may lose 22 because of it, we're going to be partly to blame if we don't help every show be as safe as it could be. So it's in our best interest. It would behoove everybody not to reach out to any van bands or the smaller artists or the smaller clubs and help them do whatever they're going to do as safe as possible.
Oh my gosh, Chris. I feel like you just took us to church on that one. That's the truth. That's the truth. That's the gospel. I love this. Mike, final thoughts for us. We're wrapping the Music News Power Hour today. My mind's blown by Chris, but I wanted to get your final thoughts, Mike.
I think Mike was tuned in on the video live stream right now.
Oh, I love it. I love it. We are on the live stream right now, and Mike is tuning in. I love that. Thanks for watching, Mike.
Oh, there you go. There, he might have the mic back. Can't hear you, Mike. All right. I do. This is the news. Mike, you there? Any final thoughts?
Yeah, sorry. No, I don't have any final thoughts. Thank you. It's a great room today. I apologize.
All right.
My mic on these headphones.
All right. Well, I do have. All right. I do have. Thank you, Elliot, for shooting this over to me. It is the News Power Hour, and there is news, and whether it is good news, sad news, it is the news. And Elliot just sent this over to me, and it has been reported as about a half hour ago. DMX dies at the age of 50 after days on life support at a White Plains hotel. So the article is a statement from the family said the Grammy-nominated artist died in the hospital, quote, with his family by his side after being placed on life support for the past few days. The 50-year-old from Yonkers was hospitalized a week ago after suffering a heart attack. A large crowd of family, friends, and fans gathered outside the hospital earlier this week for a prayer vigil. So you're going to find more news or updates. It's a sad way to end the week, end the show, and it's sad for the families and the friends and everything and the people that have surrounded his life. But we take a time to remember DMX, all the wonderful music that he's brought, that he's had effect on people's careers, life, and everything. So. With that, we are going to wrap up. Sorry to end on a sour note, but it is the news, and this is part of life, and this is things that we are going through. So, any thoughts? Anybody, DMX fan, or anything? Anybody see a DMX show? Ever seen him perform live or anything? I'm sure there's going to be some rooms popping up in memory of him. So,
yes, I've seen him a couple of times. Yes.
Yeah. Good shows.
Full of energy. Full of
Yeah.
energy. Yeah. A lot of energy. He had a lot to say. He was, it's a damn fucking shame. That's all you can say every time it happens,
Yeah. Yeah. So, all right. Look out for each other. Be good. Help each other out. Stay safe. And have a great weekend, everybody. We're out of here.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for joining us.
Bye
We'll
now.
see you back here on Monday at 12 Eastern for the Music News Power Hour. Have a great weekend.